My name is Kate Berger. Today's date is April 12th, 2022. The time is 9:32 a.m. This interview is being virtually conducted and recording. I'm interviewing Clifford Wallenfang, who was born on September 24th, 1936 in Milwaukee and served in from October 2nd of 1955 to October 1st of 1959. Clifford was an airman second class in the branch in the Air Force and served as a 327 Air Defense Command. This interview is sponsored by the Bell Tower Memorial. The first question I have for you is, where and when were you born?
Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's September 24th, 1936.
So when you were growing up, did any of your family members spend time in the military or serve in the military?
Not my father, but my older son is had been in the Army, and he is a commander of our American Legion post.
Very nice. What was your life like growing up? Did you have any particular interests? Were you into sports?
Well, I played football and track at Washington High School in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Was on two teams that won the city, the city championship for, in football. So that was my sport. And actually, when I graduated and decided to go into the Air Force, I came right from school into the Air Force.
Nice.
Got out in June, and then I went into the Air Force.
Cool. What events did you run in track? Were you like a sprinter or were you like a distance runner?
I was a sprinter, and then I ran the 440 race where we, in fact, something very interesting, the Milwaukee Journal, as it existed before it is divided now, they used to run a college event, and then they took the school in the Milwaukee area that had a good racing track and some good people that could race. So we got the chance to run at the auditorium in Milwaukee, and we came in like third. But,
oh, nice.
But did all right, yes. Thank you.
All right. When you were in high school, did you always want to go into the service? Or if you didn't, like, what was your dream job?
Well, I think I just wanted to get into sales. I like selling. And, when I was younger, everybody thought I talked too much. So they indicated that was a natural act or knack to be able to go into sales. So, but I went into sales after I got out of the Air Force.
All right. Why did you enlist?
I'm sorry?
Why did you enlist to go in the Air Force?
I went to college and went to a number of colleges. I was thinking about playing football. And when I walked into the colleges and seen the size of these people, I said, I don't think I'm going to survive in there. So I came home and I talked to my dad and I said, I got to do something. And he said, well, did you ever think of the military? So I went to the theater one afternoon because I was a little bit bored, and they had an Alan Ladd. I don't know if you know who Alan Ladd is, the movie star, but he was in a movie for the Air Force. And I got so excited about that. I went down and enlisted, came home and told my parents I enlisted, and they almost jumped out of their shoes because they never expected me to do it right away. And my dad said, well, we're going to go down there and take you out of there. And I said, I already made the pledge. I don't think I can do that. So I ended up in the Air Force.
Nice. So when you decided you want to be in the Air Force, where did you do like your basic training? Where did you start?
Well, my basic training was San Antonio, Texas, Lackland Air Force Base. And I spent 12 weeks there. And they actually, that's where you get your started. The intent when you come to basic is to tear you down to nothing and then build you up in the image that they want you to be. So that's what happened. We were there for 12 weeks. So we went on a lot of marches. They made you learn how to take orders and carry them out. I think in about the 10th week, I felt like I was a different person. And in fact, that I showed some leadership. They made me a squad leader, which was something else. I didn't have to do all the other stuff that some of the regular ones had to do. So that was good. When we finished, they give you your assignment, and I ended up in tech school in Denver, Colorado. And that was Lowry Air Force Base. And the first time you get there, normally you have to have KP, kitchen patrol. And what happened was they give you 10 days in a row so that it doesn't interrupt your schooling. And something interesting came out of just being in KP. We used to be able to night KP, and then we would have, we had a fella that lived there, and he would run down and bring us beer and we'd sit in the car out there, one at a time going out the door. And we had a master sergeant, and he said, I'll let you do that as long as you do your work and you save some for me. So that was cool. And then when we were going to tech school, part of the training down there, because the Air Force Academy is now in Colorado Springs, but it was on Lowry 2. The base was divided into two sections, and Lowry 2 was then the Air Force Academy. So we had to take those fellows out to boot camp and stay out there with them. And many of them that came didn't know the left foot from the right foot when they marched. That was a comedy, but it was a good training for us. And from that point, I was there a year and a half, and then I got transferred to Truex Field, Madison, Wisconsin. And the purpose was there, they were going to send me to Japan, and my career field was filled there. So they put me in there temporarily, and that's where I stayed. And unfortunately, that's when I got injured. Yeah. After I got out of the hospital, that kept me on that base, because they can't put you back on the flight line when you have light duty status.
Yeah. So going back to like your earlier days of training, how did you like adapt to the military life? Was it a hard change? I know it's very harsh. You said they tear you down and build you back up. Was it really hard to adapt for like your first couple weeks?
I think so, because the things that they had you do for you always were ready for an inspection, uninvited. They would appear in the middle of the night and do an inspection. We were sitting at night, and you had to have your shoes looking like you could see them in your face in them. And we would be sitting and with shoe polish and cotton bat and wet, and we'd be shining our shoes for hours. And then we had to put our locker in perfect order, so you didn't get any what they call gigs. If you got gigs, that was not good. So that was probably the toughest. I didn't
Yeah.
the marching. I was in good shape from football that I didn't have to worry about marching or doing the calisthenics that they carried out and all that on to prepare you for if you had to go to war.
Yeah. Do you recall any of your instructors during this time? If so, what do you remember about them?
Well, I had a TI, technical instructor, that had two stripes and always had a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, which, we weren't supposed to light up unless they told you could. And I didn't like him, but he kept pushing me. And then by the time I left, I had a pretty good relationship with him. And he said, "You're going to go a long way in the service if you keep that attitude up." And I thought, okay. And of course, I got injured, which derailed all of that because I was 5 months in a hospital. And that took everything away from me because I couldn't go back on the flight line. And that basically is where I ended up back in Truex Field.
Mhm. So you served a lot of your time in Colorado. What was your main job when you worked in Colorado or when you served in Colorado?
Just going to school. We would go to school from 7 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon, and then we were free. So that we did that 5 days a week, and we had the weekends off. That's why they made you do the KP in the beginning, because then they didn't have to interrupt the school to have you fulfill that.
When you were done with school, where did you serve?
When I was done with school, I'm sorry.
When you were done with all your schooling, where did you end up serving?
Oh, okay. Well, I started out in Truex Field. They just sent me out to Colorado. And then I came back to Truex Field, and because I had gotten injured. So basically, that's the three places I went.
Yeah. So you said that you worked on jets a lot during this time. What were some of the jets you worked on?
Well, when I first got into service and got to a base, excuse me, it was the F-86 Sabre jet. And we had that about a year. And then they came out with the F-102, which was a Delta aircraft, the first Delta wings that were coming back. And that was, well, it goes in a little story I could tell you about it, but it was a craft that was considered an intercepted aircraft. From Truex Field, we were in the mode for intercepting. They figured that if we had war, the Russians would be coming from the north. And of course, Truex was a perfect place to send out the fighters for interception. And the missiles that we loaded on the plane, that's what hurt me. It was a 150-pound missile that I caught dropping off I can't remember the title for it, but it's the thing you loaded on, and it didn't latch and it dropped, and I caught it on my toes and it snapped my Achilles tendon. But anyway, that aircraft was something else. It was one of the first aircraft that could fly over the sound barrier, which is 750 miles an hour, and that plane could go at 850. And it was really a special plane, and I got a little story about that. I made Airman of the Month, and primarily they give you a 3-day pass and a dinner. And the commander, I was working directly for the commander because I was on that hardship, it's a light duty. And he said, "We're going to do something different." He said, "But first you have to go through this training." And I said, "What kind of training?" Well, they make sure that you're fit. First you have to have a complete physical, and then they send you in some rooms where they put all the pressure and all this stuff because, and I'm thinking, what are we doing here? And he says, well, we're going out to Seattle, Washington to pick up 13 F-102s and bring in the
Wow.
birds back. He says, we have two trainers that have a double seat next to each other. Otherwise, it's just a single pilot. And he said, we're going to take you along as your reward.
Fun.
Boy, was I thrilled.
Yeah.
So we go out there and we stayed out there 2 days and then we start flying back. And he took me up to 50,000 feet and he opened up the plane. And I almost felt like I was plastered against the wall. I mean, it was so, almost 700 miles an hour. I mean, I just never went that way. So he did a few maneuvers. He wanted to show me what the plane could do and everything. And I came back and I was unbelievable. I had to tell everybody in the world what was going on. I mean, it was just a privilege to have had that opportunity.
Was everybody jealous of your opportunity?
Oh yeah, they said, "Well, what's it like?" And I always had to tell everybody. If somebody found out that, "Oh, did you fly out to Seattle in the jet?" And yeah, and it's so much different than being in a commercial aircraft. I mean, they got the pressurized. You're in this suit with the mask on and oxygen when you're up that high, and it's just a different view, and it's almost unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine when the astronauts are going up in a rocket and going, but I mean, higher than we did. It's just the whole world looks different to you.
Yeah. So before you were put on light duty, I know you did a lot of loading missiles and stuff, and also you worked on the canopy ejection mechanism. Can you
Yes.
describe that to me a little bit?
Okay. Well, what I did is first of all, the canopy, I had to put a small rocket in that because the canopy had to be shot off first. Okay. And the idea of that is it had to clear before the pilot would eject the seat. Otherwise, they might hit each other and that could kill them up at that feet. So that's what I did. I took care of the seat with the explosion that it needed, and the rocket that went into the canopy, and the seat for ejection had a lever down below there, and it ejected from underneath and shot it right out. And by that time, the canopy was clear of the aircraft. And so those were my three main things there. And before you do anything, you have to do all that stuff. And then you have to go with a meter and do a stray voltage thing, because if the pilot were to put on the aircraft, start it up, it could shoot maybe the missile or something, and it would be horrible. You have to do that, and you have to go over there and sign off, and the pilot signs off on it. And if something's wrong, you know who's responsible.
Yeah. Did you have a lot of pressure doing that?
I'm sorry?
Did you have a lot of pressure doing that? Were you ever like really nervous?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was very important. And you're talking about a life. If you do something bad, would impair the aircraft.
Yeah. So I know during this time you dropped the missile on your foot, correct?
Yes, I dropped I was just trying to tell you in the beginning here that I caught this 150 pound missile, and I was on my tiptoes because you're not much room under the bomb bay door. And it snapped my Achilles tendon, went all the way up into almost into my backside. And the thing that was bothering me was not only that it hurt, but my foot was detached from my leg.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't move. So they got me to the nearest hospital, military, and that was Great Lakes Naval Base in Illinois. And I spent 5.5 hours in surgery and then 5 months in the hospital there. And then they debated to give me, what am I trying to say, medical discharge or put me on a base. And they decided to put me back at Truex and change my, what we call AFSC number, which means your work number and what field you're in. And it turned out that they made me a clerk typist. I didn't type, but they sent me all over downtown in Madison and on all the different departments carrying stuff. And that's why I was working for the commander of the base. And, but it impaired my rank movement because the job was so, you know, in my mind, so superfluous, but I just didn't get any more rank after that.
Yeah. So I heard you met Warren Spahns. How did you do that?
Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up. Well, when I was at Truex Base, I didn't have a car getting back to Milwaukee. When I was off on the weekends, we had a weekend, every other one off. So I wanted to go home, and I'm standing on it now. Right now they have the freeway going all the way to Madison and all the way to the other side of Wisconsin. At that time, it was a 2-lane highway. So I'm standing in the side of the highway and with my thumb out. And this gentleman pulls over this bright yellow convertible. And I said, wow, and he said, you need a ride? And I said, yes, I do. And he said, where are you going? I said, Milwaukee. He said, well, that's where I'm going. So I get in the car and I'm riding and I keep looking at him, and he turns to me and he says, I suppose you wonder who I am because you keep looking at me. He says, I'm Warren Spahn. I pitch for the Milwaukee Braves. It wasn't the Brewers, and it was the Braves. And we start talking, and this is the nicest man you want to know. And he says, well, where can I drop you off? And I said, well, I'm going to my girlfriend's house. And he drove me right to the door.
Wow.
And when I got home, I told my dad, and he said, well, why don't you get his autograph? And I said, hey, he was nice enough to drive me. I'm not going to do that. So that was an experience with him. And he was just a marvelous guy, and he was a heck of a pitcher.
Yeah, I saw that he pitched a lot of games and pitched a lot of winning games. That's pretty exciting.
Well, excuse me.
I also saw that he's like a war hero too. So that's like pretty cool that you guys both served your time.
Yeah, that was really neat. And this leads me back to the hospital. When I was hospitalized and not being able to get out of bed because I had a cast up to almost to my stomach. We were right in the time when the Braves were playing the Yankees. Yep. And all these guys that thought the Yankees were the best team in the world. And I got brave because I got so sick of listening to that. So I said, put your money where your mouth is. And several guys did. And I had just my paycheck. Back in those days, it wasn't that big. And if I had lost, my dad would have probably shot me because I had 5 guys I would have had to pay. But I wouldn't, because of Buell, Burdette, and Spahn that won the games to win that championship. So that was another wonderful thing that happened. And so that was kind of cool.
Yeah, did you brag to all the guys there that you met?
Oh, they didn't want to talk to me anymore. I thought
Yeah.
I had friends, but after that, they were a little standoffish. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, they made the bet, then they lost. So
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I saw it was the best of 7 games, and they went all the way to 7 games. So that must have been very nerve-wracking.
Oh, we were going crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
a couple of games they won, and I thought, oh, this is going to be the end. And I told my dad that, and he said, boy, you're lucky you won. Yeah, because he would have had to pay the money. I didn't have it.
Yeah. So, what do you consider to be your most important contribution during your service?
Well, just serving my country would be the
Yeah.
um, and the contribution that I was able to make either in, well, I didn't go overseas, but we had to have backup people in case
Yeah.
we needed more people. I would have probably ended up in Japan, as I said before, but my career field was filled, so I didn't get overseas, and then I got injured, so it had eliminated any going out of the state because they had to limit what I could do. I couldn't go on a flight line. That was my career field. So, but I think it just my country, I was part of it, and now that I'm at this age and appreciate what this was all about, it was fantastic.
So, when you transitioned back to civilian life, what was it like transitioning from the military back to civilian life?
Well, one of the things, I got married in that time, and when my daughter got, was born in service, so coming out was a little bit easier. I had put out, when I knew I was going to get depart from there, I started sending out resumes and had some interviews, and they waited for me. I got a job with a company. They waited till I got out of the service, and it was a couple months ahead of time. And I was there for probably a year. I can't remember. Now I remember. It was, I went for a company that sold baby food. Just happened to have a baby, young, but they gave me a job, and the job that I was doing is I would come in and service certain stores. As when you go through down the aisle and you see all the different baby foods, there's 3 or 4 difference. Well, I would come in, I would straighten it out, I would put more stock on the shelf, and then you would move your place with all their stuff and move somebody else's, so you were first. And then the next company came in, they would do the same thing. So we were playing pairs with this. But it was, the idea was that people walk down, the first ones they see, they take, basically. That was the concept. So that's what we had to do. So I had about 12 stores that I was responsible for, and I got so sick of baby food. Then you go home and you're feeding your little one. And I mean, that was really a comedy.
Yeah. So while you were in the military, were there any people you greatly admired or learned any life lessons from?
Well, some of the people I dealt with when we didn't maintain friends because everybody went their way. But I had a couple guys that were just fantastic people, and I had a boss well, I should say the boss. I mean the commander at the base in Truex, and I was pretty close to him because I was reporting there, bringing stuff in and out all the time, and then flying out to Washington and back with him. That was he was a full colonel, and he was very, very good.
Yeah. Do you stay in contact with any of these people nowadays, or are they
kind of just? No, and probably a couple of them might be passed away already. I mean, me at 85, I'm so happy I'm here. I got to get a chance to see, my family.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of my family, I have four of my own children. I have 8 grandchildren and
Wow.
7 great-grandchildren. And I never thought I would be around to, see that.
Yeah. What were some of the life lessons you learned from being in the military?
Well, first of all, it made a man out of me because of you learn to follow orders, you learn to take on a project and do it. You meet so many different people that have to deal with in our flight. That's what, when we marched, that they called it a flight. It had about, I want to say 30 guys. At that time, the girls didn't march with the guys like they do today. So that, yeah, you had a lot of people that were so different, coming from all sorts of the country, different attitudes, different colors. There were a lot of people of different color, and I thought those were things that we overcame, that were something that we maybe didn't think about when we were 15, 16, or 17, and all of a sudden I'm 18 and you're exposed to all of these things. I think those were my key things I learned.
What was your favorite part about serving?
What my favorite part? What?
What was your favorite part about serving in the military?
Well, it was the excitement. I mean, primarily when I was working on flight line and the jets, that was a thrill. I mean, I never got close to the jets like that. Well, I went to an air show and you could see some of the older aircraft, but this was really an experience. I just wish I could have done it longer because I really enjoyed it. And I mean, I didn't enjoy the cold when it was 30 below with the wind blowing and you're out there loading an aircraft, but that was part of the game,
Yeah. What was the hardest part about serving? I know we just talked about your favorite parts, but what was like kind of the hardest part?
Well, going through this injury I had.
Yeah.
I mean, that really, well, just rehabbing to get that leg to where I could walk took a long time. I've been on crutches for I don't know how long, and then a cane. I still wear a cane just for balance. But I've had a lot of stuff that's taken place. Right now I'm with 50% with the VA. That's a percentage of injury. It goes all the way up to 100 for different reasons and major injuries. But that was the hardest because, and I still have it. I mean, my toes are like this on my right foot. Yeah. Arthritis in my hip and back, all related to this injury. And that was the hardest part for me. Other than that, I enjoyed my tour.
Yeah, so kind of going off that, looking back, you're happy with the decision that you decided to be part of the Air Force?
Was I happy?
Yeah, were you happy with your decision?
Oh yeah, I am very proud of it, and I wear my cap all the time.
Yeah.
I'm proud to have it. People are coming right now, you're walking in a store or you're sitting down, somebody will walk over and say, thank you for your service. Wow. I'm doing that more than some of the, I would say, almost all the way back to World War II. I mean, they were gratitude there, but in between, I don't think they recognize the service like they're doing it today.
So what advice would you give to young kids who are looking to join the military now?
Well, I think you have to look, first of all, to see what you want to do in your future. If you want to go to college and beyond, or get a training in something and staying out of the service. But if you want to go to the service, you have to think of what you want to do. I looked at Army, I looked at Navy. The only thing that kept me out of the Navy was the pants that I had to wear with all those buttons.
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't make me feel too hot about. But I would think that you just have to let your heart feel what you want to do.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your questions and how nice you have been, the way you presented them to me.
Thank you. Well, in closing, this interview has been an interview of Clifford Wallenfang regarding his service during the time of October 2nd of 1955 and October 1st of 1959. My name is Kate Berger, and the time is 10:08 a.m. And thank you for agreeing to this interview, and most importantly, thank you for your service.
Thank you.